Just want to show you real quick, this is the white Rust-Oleum primer that you brush on. It's the clean metal primer. It's pretty durable stuff. It scratches a little bit. It sands. I haven't sanded this. This is just on plywood. I just want to show how well that seals up. That's what we're going to be using on this, and it's going to turn out real good. Just the primer is going to look really good. All the gluing, shaping, and sanding is complete. So now it's ready for the primer. So I'm ready to start putting primer on it. We're going to use the Rust-Oleum clean metal primer in a can with a brush. 1-inch El Cheapo toss away brush. By the way, this screwdriver handle was painted with this a couple months ago. This kind of primer is very durable. I like it a lot. So I'm going to demonstrate how I'm going to apply this to seal it up and use it as a base for the artwork. A little bit on the brush. Spread it on here like this. I'm just going to demonstrate this, and then I'm going to turn the camera off and finish it off camera. Now I have a piece of cardboard. This kind of cardboard is really good. It's from the 10 pack. It's a little bit stiffer. And I'm just going to use it to scrape the wood. I just want to work the primer into the wood. Now this stuff dries pretty slow, so this first coat is going to be relatively thin. I'm just going to work it all around and work it in. Okay, I'll show you what that looks like when it's done. Alright, after the first application with the piece of cardboard, this is what we got. It's not completely covered, but it's getting into the pores. You don't want to build it up real thick the first time, because you're going to have to do a lot of sanding afterwards. So by putting it on thin like this, it's going to cut down on the amount of sanding time. What you want to remember is every step of this process, the primer, the paint, the finish, all has to be, the clear coat all has to be sanded smooth. We're going to go for a show quality finish on this, even though we're using hardware store materials. Okay, the body and sides are done with the first coat. I'm going to do a little bit of the neck for you, because I want to show you exactly how I'm doing this. I'm putting it on with a brush. That gets good coverage. Make sure I get some on everything. And then I take the cardboard, and you can see the piece of cardboard, how it's bent, and some of it's got paint on it. Well, it's from scraping it in and scraping off the extra. Sorry about that. And also using the flat part to work it into the wood. Now the neck, I'm not going to try to scrape it off like I did the body, but I do want to get it worked in real good. So I'm going to go back with the brush and smooth it all out and just leave it, because necks are really easy to sand, so any excess that gets on there will come off without any trouble. Okay, by the time I got the neck done, the body was ready for another coat. It had soaked up enough and had set up enough, so I brushed on some more and scraped it in with the cardboard. And obviously right now it looks horrible, but this is the first coat. You're going to expect it to look like this on the first coat. Not good at all. It's not smooth, it's not even, there's lumps in it, there might be some dirt, but we're going to take care of all that later. So for now, I'm going to stop and let this dry. Alright, it's been about 3.5 hours, and the primer is dry to the touch. You can feel it's not quite dry, but it's dry enough to touch, and I actually used some really coarse sandpaper and a block and sanded a few of the high spots out. I'm going to try to give you a good look at it. And what I'm going to do next is just take the brush and give it a coat of primer, let that dry, and then give it another coat after that. Let that dry, flip it over, and do the same to the other side. And then we'll see where we're at after we're finished with that. Second coat is complete. As you can see, most of my brush strokes are pretty much running in one direction. Next coat that I do, they're going to run the other direction, so there'll be a crisscross pattern when it dries. And then we'll sand that and see if it needs another coat or two before we move on. The strap button extension is looking pretty good. Can't really tell I did anything to it. There's the neck. I always just keep brushing that in the same direction. Now, when you do the headstock, you want to make sure you keep it thin. Don't let that stuff get too thick up there. You're going to have a lot of trouble with your tuners. So be really cautious with the thickness on your headstock. And one other tip, to prolong the life of your paintbrush, wrap it in plastic while it's wet, and then you should be able to use it again next time you're ready. So we're going to let this dry 5 or 6 hours and come back and take a look at it and see if it's ready for the third coat. Okay, it's been 5 hours. It's looking pretty good. I had to hit a couple spots with sandpaper because I had just some little weird things in the way I sanded it, and a couple spots where the paint got a little too thick. So that part was a little too sharp right there. And there was another spot there that was a little too sharp. I had to try to shape that out a little bit better right there. So I'm going to give it one more coat, and then I'm going to let it dry for a day or two, and then flip it over and do the front. Okay, second coat's on. Well, actually, third coat, second full coat with a brush. I put this one on a little bit thicker because most of it's going to get sanded off. You can kind of see the crisscross pattern with the brush strokes in that area through there. That'll just make it smoother and more uniform when I sand it off. But that's what it looks like all wet, so you can see the amount of brush strokes. That'll pretty much stay like this, and this primer's getting kind of thick, so it's glopping on there pretty good, which is going to give me plenty to sand off. I'm going to put a little bit more right there because I don't like that. Alright, so I'm going to do that, and then tomorrow we'll flip it over maybe and do the front. Okay, it's been 2 days. Back's dry. Just want to show you the texture. It's probably the best place you can see how rough it is. Like I said, we're going to smooth all that out with sandpaper, but we're going to paint the front with primer first. It's been 2 days, so my other brush dried out, and since I'm doing the front, I'm going to start with a new brush. Same thing as on the back. I'm going to spread a little bit of paint out. Take my piece of cardboard and start working it in. As you can see, there's still a little bit of primer in the pores from the last paint job. So I'm going to spread it out evenly, work in smaller areas, and take my time. I want to get it worked in to the pores as deep as I can, and then scrape off as much of the excess as I can. And then I'll come back and give it a second coat with the cardboard scraper, just like I did on the back. All right, see how it looks when it's done. There is the first application with the cardboard. You can see it's a lot smoother. It looks a lot better than when I did the first application on the other side. So I'm going to do the headstock, let this dry a little bit, and then give it another application. When you do the headstock, brush it on real thin and then scrape it off and work it in with the cardboard. And you can see right there where it's a little thick along that edge. That's from the primer that I put on the other side. So that'll get evened out and sanded off. And you really want to be careful you don't get too thick around these holes, because that's going to cause you a lot of problems when you go to put your tuning keys back on. So keep it real thin there. Second coat with the cardboard is on. It's got its highlights and its lowlights. Looks pretty good overall. It's the first coat. A little rough here, a little rough there. You can see right here how thick the other side was when I did the edges. So that glob there, we're going to smooth that out, and then when I sand it, you won't even notice it. It'll all be gone. Second coat with the cardboard is on. It's got its highlights and its lowlights. Looks pretty good overall. It's the first coat. A little rough here, a little rough there. You can see right here how thick the other side was when I did the edges. So that glob there, we're going to smooth that out, and then when I sand it, you won't even notice it. It'll all be gone. All right, I know sooner or later somebody's going to see this and freak out. Look at all that paint that I got on the fretboard because I didn't take my time and mask it off. Well, I've got this DT860 from PPG. This is reducer. This stuff dissolves just about anything without a lot of work. So I'm just going to take this and wipe this stuff off the edges. It's going to dry out the fretboard a little bit. It's also going to clean it up, and then when it's all done, I'll go back and use some oil and treat the neck with fretboard oil. Okay, I got most of that off. I'm not going to worry about it too much right now because I'm going to be handling it and painting it and doing everything else. The neck will be one of the last things I do, along with gluing the nut. All right, so I wanted to show you real quick. I'm going to go ahead and do this second coat, or actually the first coat with the brush. I wanted to show you this spot right here, what I'm going to do. I'm going to just add a little bit more paint up on that spot there. This Rust-Oleum stuff doesn't shrink much when you use it. When it dries, it pretty much keeps the same shape and form if you can get it. I mean, when it's running down the sides, you know, you can't do much. You gotta grab your brush and catch those runs or use your finger, but you can kind of use it to fill in bad spots like that. See, now that's a little bit smoother. So that's going to come out when I do that with the third coat. That's going to look real good. All right, I'm going to do this coat. I'm going to do the next coat, and then we'll take a look at it real quick when it's all primed up, and then that'll be it for this video. Please like and subscribe. I want to make lots and lots and lots of cool guitars for you guys. So please hit the like and subscribe buttons. Thanks. It's been 2 hours. The last coat of primer is brushed on now. You can see how rough it looks. The next video will be sanding this thing, getting all that smoothed out and touching up any areas that I sand through. So you really want to watch that video. It'll be up in a week or so. I'm going to give this a couple days to dry first, and then we'll do that. You really need to see that video because you're going to see all this sloppiness disappear and end up with a really nice finish. If you haven't done so already, please check out Guitars for Bars channel introduction video. Have a good one.